What's happening to Auburn football's offensive line recruitment, and are the fans to blame for it?
Freezing temperatures are likely for several hours inland and a few hours closer to the coast.
Yes.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. The everydayers know it is a Charlie Tuesday, meaning we are celebrating this special day of the week with Auburn message board legend Charlie5 himself, just in time to sprinkle in a little panic. Over the last 24 hours, it seems like Auburn's offensive line recruiting has taken a step back. Seemingly all recruiting experts are saying Khalil House is now going to Stanford after being an Auburn supposed lock over the last few weeks. And Charlie5, I think this is a major, major bummer. And once again, Auburn is like, it's like we're cursed. We can't get consistent offensive linemen.
Boy, what a controversial cold open right there. And then I pop on, like everybody's waiting for me to like punch all the fans in the face, I guess.
Sure. That's right.
No,
That's right.
it is disheartening. I mean, it does kind of seem like House is possibly, leaning towards Stanford based off of several reports, like you said, from different sites. He just came off of an official visit there. I'm sure Stanford can be like over like a very wow type visit. One of the top academic schools in the country, and that's where I think that's a big emphasis for his family.
Yeah, good for him. Yeah.
Stanford's really pumping up the recruitment. They plucked a 4-star edge out of Florida recently. You hate to lose somebody like that. I don't think the recruitment is necessarily over, but it's like, man, why are we not getting guys in the boat? We're getting a bunch of dudes here. Offensive line, you're right. It seems like we're somewhat snake bit. And I mean, there's not a ton left on the board. Like it's like you're either going to have to go find project type guys, or you're going to have to flip a bunch of guys, which is neither one of them are necessarily out of the cards, or just wait for the portal. So it's crazy. I don't really get it. I guess it's a little bit of show me type stuff, possibly.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, it's not necessarily, it's not ideal. It's not an ideal situation on the offensive line right now.
Yeah. All right. So as far as some other reasons this possibly could have happened, because look, I'm sure Stanford, if the prestige, from the education side of things is part of it, like, cool. Good for you. Like, go to Stanford. I couldn't go to Stanford, or did I want to, but like I couldn't have, right? So props to him for being able to have that option. I mean, that's like life-changing stuff there. If you're able to do that in life after football, good for him. But let's all go back to a few weeks ago when all of pretty much the whole coaching staff and even some players, they were all putting out their bat signals on social media. Oh, somebody's coming. Somebody's coming. The eyes. I think the Auburn football account, like the official Auburn football Twitter account, I think tweeted out like the eye emojis.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that are like, oh, it's Perry Thompson. I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think Perry Thompson just committed or flipped or anything like that. And I mean, everybody that I talked to that would know, and everybody that you talked to that would know, it seemed like it was Khalil House. It seemed like it. I mean, a lot of folks from different parts of, sources throughout the program, we all kind of came together like, this seems like it's House, which is great. And then what did the Auburn fan base do, Charlie5? What did they do?
I was pretty shocked that there was a lot of people that they seemed deflated. This better not be for a 3-star offensive lineman type stuff. And I was like, can you imagine if you're Khalil House, and I'm sure you want to go see, these people are tweeting this stuff out, talking about the coaches and the players. I'm sure you want to go see the comments, and you want to go get into the hype. I wouldn't be shocked if some of the reaction, or a lot of the reaction, had a lot to do with him, possibly wanting to pump the brakes a little bit. Well, man, I'm not super appreciated. Maybe I'm going to take this Stanford visit a little bit more serious next week. Again, I don't know that that's the case, but I think we need to understand we're not at the point where I think we can be jaded over any offensive line commit, much less somebody that Hugh Freeze has singled out and wanted and is still, as of right now, still battling to get back from Stanford. So I think you probably need to think about things a little bit deeper when you do that. Second part, we got to stop. We got to get an idea of what we want to do with this whole Twitter thing. It's confusing, but it's bitten us several times. And like, I'm a huge proponent of the whole recruiting staff and like everything they've done. Like, we got to get this thing jimmied up. We got to get this thing right. Okay. Cause like, this is not the first time where stuff's gone off and then nothing happens. Like, that goes off and then there's a commitment. Like, that is how it works. That's how it should work. Like, all this stuff for silent stuff, it just ends up making you look bad. And it opens up opportunities for you to look bad. And, still, could it have been for Malik Blockton? He was there for a visit. So I guess you could pass it off that
sure,
all of that was for him. But, I mean, we just got to get some sort of like flow down when it comes to that.
I don't get the point of it.
I don't
like what do you get out of saying like, we got to commit. It'll be cool when you figure out who it is. Like, I don't get the benefit of that. If you're going to do stuff like that, I mean, make sure the kid's committing. Like, I would almost kind of put some pressure, like, all right, we're going to do this and we're going to build this up, but like, you need to commit in an hour.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that's that big of an ask, Charlie5.
I think it's kind of I think that's pretty basic, to be honest. I mean, I don't really know why you would I don't really understand. I know that there's like, everybody wants to go get a graphic done and everybody wants to go shoot a video or something now, which is fine. That's fine. But you know what? Wait till the video or the graphics done and then shoot off the eyes from the Auburn football account and all that stuff. Like, get that part hemmed up. Like, that is really, really bad. Like, I'm not a huge like Twitter critic. Like, I don't necessarily like go on and pick stuff apart like that, but like, this is not the first time. Like, this is becoming a sort of a thing. Okay. Like, I think you got Damari Alston is enough. Like, bro, like, let's get a rhythm going. Like,
and look, it's fun when it's happening. We're like, oh man, who is it? Who is it? You know, the Discord is blowing up. Everybody's like tweeting at each other, like, who did we just land and all that? And like, it's fun. But then nothing ever comes of it. And it's just, you have
2 hours. That's what I'm saying. You got 2 hours to build suspense. That's all you got. If it's 24 hours, don't even do it. Like, just forget it. Like,
or wait 20 hours and then do it again. Or hey, schedule the tweet, coach. Schedule the tweet.
You can do that. Like, it'll do it for you. Like, you don't have to be there when you do it. Like, it will just tweet it.
Oh my goodness, dude.
That's got to be fixed. This is a bad one.
It's a bad look. It's a bad look. And look, and I'm with you on the whole response of like, maybe let's don't poop on 3 stars. Like, there's a reason the staff wanted him. And also, a year ago, we were dying for any offensive lineman, which we're kind of still in that situation. Like, there's not a lineman in this class. Like, let's kind of have some perspective on this and don't do that. Like, we always say, don't tweet at recruits. That's always kind of the thing on Twitter. And you can do whatever you want.
Either.
Yeah. Don't. I mean, especially don't be like, oh, we're not doing. If we do all of this just for him, if we have all of this energy just for like Khalil House, I'm going to freak out. Don't do any of that.
No, it's like
major unforced error by Auburn on this.
For sure. And like, maybe you get a commitment here in the next few days from a guy like Reese Baker from Madison Academy, who was unranked, an unranked offensive tackle for a while. And I've seen a lot of people sort of poop on that. And then all of a sudden he gets a ranking from 247 and it's higher than Bryce Kane. So like, there's guys that just don't have the publicity that others have. And the only way you really get to see them is through camps and things like that. So like, if you see a commitment like Reese Baker, don't be like, oh, we're just taking one because we missed one and all that kind of stuff. Like these, I think at this point in time, we have not earned the right to turn our nose up at anyone. And I think it's going to get better. We're just sort of,
and also just trusting the staff, right? Like if they want, I mean, we've kind of, how many times have we come on here and talk about how particular Hugh Freeze is?
Sure.
Like very patient with the portal and all of that. Like it's the same on the recruiting front too. Like there's guys that he wants. It's frustrating. All right. But where could Auburn go on the trenches? Because there's no guys in the trenches in this class yet. Where do they go? We'll tell you next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel is the best place to wager on all of your sports action. If you want to wager on the line of like if Charlie5 is going to wear a hat next time he comes on the show,
minus a million.
But hey, people still bet on Wemby to go first overall to the Spurs.
I can be bought.
Wow. All right. But yeah, be sure to check out our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon. And if you're a new customer, you get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in free bets if your first bet doesn't win. Once again, FanDuel.com/lockedon. Happy Charlie Tuesday to all who celebrate. We're celebrating here on Locked On Auburn. Pro Football Focus was not kind to the Auburn Tigers. We will discuss that later in the show. But first things first. So it seems like House is going to Stanford.
Yeah.
And now it seems like Riggs, maybe that's not as confident. Who knows? I mean, I feel like we would have heard more at this point if Riggs to Auburn was a thing. I didn't realize until recently his father played at Georgia Tech. And so that's certainly an aspect that seems to be popular in his decision. And so if Auburn doesn't get either of those guys, Charlie5, I know you mentioned Reese Baker, but where else do you expect Auburn to go in the trenches?
Exactly. I mean, well, you have the guy from Hawaii. I can't pronounce his name. It's like Tiamu or something possibly.
Right.
That hit it off with our tight ends coach. His family hit it off with our tight ends coach. That's pot, and he's a higher ranked guard. And you got Reese Baker, but like there's just not a ton. There's not a ton necessarily out there. So I think you're going to just be battling. Like if I was a betting man right now, I would say Khalil House would still end up in this class.
Let's go.
If I was betting right now, I think there's a lot of like emotion and whatnot wrapped up in the official visit, and he's probably going to commit. And again, I
think he's committing Friday, Charlie5. Isn't that
30th? The 30th, okay. I believe, is when he commits. So,
which is my birthday, by the way, for people who care.
Happy early birthday!
Thanks.
So again, let's see how some of these battles go down the stretch and get into the season. And maybe if you throttle a couple of teams early, look competitive in the Georgia game. Who knows what happens? I still think there's going to be some show me stuff that people want to see. Proof of concept, as Jay had from Auburn Live likes to say. So I definitely think there's a lot to that.
I think Justin Ferguson came up with that first. Just saying.
Did he? Okay.
Just saying. He's the first I heard say it.
Cool.
Yeah. Then like on the other side of it, I mean, there's just not a whole lot of big men in this class right now. I mean, just
on
quick
either
class.
Side of the ball.
Yeah. I mean, we've got Walker White at quarterback, Joseph Phillips, who, I mean, he may play on the line. We'll certainly see. At linebacker, Jamarian Burnett at running back, Amon Lane and Jaden Lewis are corners. Kinsley Falson's a safety. Martavius Collins listed as an athlete, but he's going to be either tight end or H-back or some kind of role there. And then Bryce Kane's obviously a receiver. It's like, we need something in the trenches. Yeah. Where's the beef? Where's the beef instead of who's the beef?
And hopefully that ends in the early part of July with Malik Blockton. And then, like I said, Reese Baker, hopefully maybe in the next, week or so, unless you're holding off for, some other guys. But that might be it for a while. That might be. Do you
think any of this, Charlie5, is orchestrated for Big Cat to be a big deal?
Say that one more time.
Do you think any of this, like, lack of commitment or kind of drama, do you think any of it could be orchestrated for Big Cat Weekend to be a bigger weekend towards the end of the month, of next month?
It could be, but I just don't know who that would be at this point in time.
Because Blockton's going to announce before then, right?
Because Blockton's going to announce before then. I think you're still going to have at least 3 or 4 commits in July, but I don't know how many of those are going to be in the trenches. I don't think, and honestly, I'm not sure that any of them are. So again, you got Kamarian Franklin, who's a big defensive tackle that we're going hard after. That's a big guy that we a battle we really got to win. LJ McCray, as long as he's not committed, we're in it. Mm-hmm. The longer it goes, the better for him. Those are some big targets. Possibly, it seems like maybe we're playing the long game with some higher end dudes on the defensive line, and the defensive class in general in our traditional recruiting area was just not that deep. It's just not that deep at all. So there's just not a lot of places to go. And maybe I haven't looked, but possibly maybe offensive line is similar. You're just going to have to win some battles. You're just going to have to beat some guys or take some flyers, really evaluate some dudes.
And it seems like Casey Poe's not coming here either, which is a shame. Either Oklahoma or Alabama, it seems like, for him. So It's a real shame. It's a real shame. But we will see how this staff gets it together, because I still feel like they're going to figure it out. And I guess the good thing is, like, next year, the 24 offensive line, I think you've got a good amount of your starters still here. Like, Connor Lew will start. Jeremiah Wright, I don't think is going to go to the league after this year. Muskrat will be here, and then Too Tall Miller. He'll have a year in the system. So, like, I don't think you're going to be, like, decimated. But we've talked about the long term, and Hugh Freeze has talked about this too. Like, you got to build it through high school, and you just can't patchwork it every year. I don't think. Maybe you can. Maybe you can. I genuinely don't know. I don't think they want to, though, but maybe you can. It's too early to see in this whole transfer portal era.
I think the way this offensive line performs this year, the one we just patched together, is gonna mean a lot. Is gonna tell a lot. I'm with you. I don't think you can build the trenches through the portal, but you can at least get a good idea of what it could be like this year. But man, you got to start getting high school guys in the trenches. I'll portal up some wide receivers. I'll portal up some linebackers and some pass rushers. Yeah, and maybe even some DBs. But I feel like you got to have some trenches that you just build, you stockpile from the high school rank.
I'm with you. Yeah. Or you add 1 or 2, right? If there's a big tackle you want to go out and get, but like, you can't add 4 like we did, 3 definite starters. Then we'll see if Muskrat starts. Right. Yeah. So we'll see. All right. Pro Football Focus put out some rankings, and I think we just got to ask ourselves the question, like, are we wrong? Charlie5, are we wrong? We'll discuss in just a moment right here on Locked On Auburn. I want to encourage you to join the Locked On Auburn Discord. It is free. All you have to do is click the link in the episode description down below. So PFF, Pro Football Focus, I love their grading scale. They put out their latest ELO rankings, and my understanding is ELO is not an acronym. It's named after some guy whose last name was Elo that determined how to, like, rank chess players is my understanding of it. If you think I'm wrong on that, let me know. I'm genuinely curious. But they have PFF ranked every single FBS Division I team in college football, and they have the Tigers as the 40th team nationally. Okay. All right. That's a lot better than last year. The issue is it puts them at 13th in the SEC, only better than Vanderbilt. And do you think we have the 13th best position group at any spot on the roster? I don't think we have the 13th best quarterback room. Our running back room is probably top 5. Our offensive line could be top 5. It could be 10th. I don't think it's 13th. Receivers
at worst.
Yeah. And I kind of feel like it's that way everywhere, right? Like, the defensive line's not 13th. The receivers have a ton of question marks, but I don't think it's the 13th best unit. So, and then obviously defensive backs, we feel good about the defensive backfield. Linebackers is probably the one you could make the best argument for, but I still think they're going to be able to figure it out. There's just too many talented dudes in that room. So are we wrong on this, Charlie5? I mean, because we both think this team's going to overachieve.
I think it has to do. I just don't think they weight in portal players. They don't know how to weight in portal players yet. Like, I don't think they're not able to. Like, who knew was TCU incredibly highly ranked last year? I don't.
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with like how you perform.
Or whatever it was.
Trying to find it. It's how you perform against your opponent. Here it is. PFF ELO is a system that updates each team's ratings after each game played based on two things: how well they played against their opponent and how well they were expected to play against their opponent. The PFF ELO system measures the former using the unique offensive, defensive, and special team grades, while the latter is determined by the PFF ELO ratings leading up to the game and where the game is played.
So I would say, if based off that, if they can't factor in portal players. So I would say we probably, if you don't add the class that we added, if we don't add the guys that we added, we might be 13th out of 14. That roster, if the roster was as it was going into another year, that might have been a 13th out of 14th roster. It was that bad. I said that roster. I said that about the roster last year during the season. But I mean, I could see that that has to be the explanation. They're just not able to calculate or weight the impact of the transfer classes that come in. I mean, we added 20 something guys, plus freshmen, in newcomers in general. I think it's tough. I bet you if you looked at it, the ones that are ranked the highest probably have the most returning starters or returning talent.
Let's look. Georgia's 1, Alabama's 2, Ohio State, Michigan, Texas, Clemson, Penn State is 7, LSU is 8, Tennessee is 9.
Wow, Tennessee.
I'm just kind of scrolling, picking up the SEC teams here. Arkansas is 18, Kentucky is 19, Florida is 20. How is Florida that high? Florida's coming off it. This is all PFF. Florida's coming off its second straight losing season, which hasn't happened since the 1970s. The Gators must also replace quarterback Anthony Richardson, who was taken in the top 5 of the NFL draft. What? And they talk about Graham Mertz coming in. Like, what? Peyton Thorne's better than Graham Mertz, right? South Carolina is 22. Mississippi State is 23. Yeah, and then I saw, just because Lance was telling me about this at auburndaily.com, but like Texas A&M is 10th in the SEC.
Wow.
So,
but they lost a ton of kids. They lost a ton of people in the portal. Like, I don't know. I would like to see the ratio of returning experience, how that list breaks down.
I'm with you.
Like, I would be curious to see.
We're not picked to like finish much better than anywhere else, though. I mean, some magazines have us 7th in the SEC West. Another has us 6th in the SEC West. Like, I mean, it's not that crazy, right?
Yeah. It's hard to imagine. Well, it's hard to imagine. I don't know. Maybe we're homers. But they were right last year. And we were dogging them for the 5.5 win total or whatever it was, and then we end up obviously going under. So I don't know. I just don't see it. I don't think it's. I think it's hard to predict unless you watch this Auburn team and you know who left and you know who came in to replace. If they're just halfway decent from the way they performed the year prior, that being the transfers, then I feel like we have to be better. Like it's hard to imagine you could be much worse.
Right. And Lindsay and I kind of touched on this briefly on the show yesterday, where JD Pickell picked us to go 6-6. And his first reasoning was like, Auburn gave up 180 yards rushing per game last year, and you can't do that in the SEC. And I'm like, I don't know if that's like the main reason I would cling to. Like if you told me Auburn went 6-6, I wouldn't be thinking like because of the rush defense. I'd be like, oh, the quarterback thing didn't work out. Like Peyton didn't work out, or Robbie got hurt, or something happened with the offense and it just didn't click. That seems to be the most likely thing, or the receivers just didn't work out, or I feel like it's more on the offense. I just have a hard time thinking that the defense is going to be the issue.
Well, yeah, and they sort of the offense, a bad offense can impact a bad defense more so than a bad defense can impact a good offense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like
I don't think you said that fully correct, but I know what you mean.
A defense being bad does not have near as much of an impact on an offense as much as a bad offense has an impact on a defense because of exposure, time on the field, turnovers, putting you in bad situations. Like it all sort of stemmed from the lack of offense. So I agree 1,000%. If we are not successful next year, it's because the offense just didn't get it going. Like they couldn't get it going. Peyton Thorne had a bad year, or Robbie, didn't progress, or receivers couldn't step up. Offensive line, the
transfer experiment didn't work. Yeah, right.
It's way more weighted that way than it would be else, and that's the deciding factor. You're depending on a portal quarterback, 3 portal wide, almost a whole portal starting 11 minus like a running back and maybe 1 offensive lineman. You're almost
and Javarius Johnson. You're almost expecting a completely brand new offense to push you forward. And I mean, I can see where that can raise like skepticism. Yeah. I mean, Javarius Johnson is going to be literally the only returning starter.
And Jeremiah Wright, I guess.
I don't think he ever started. Actually,
you're right. I don't think he ever started either. So yeah, you're right. Jarquez, did he ever? He may have had like a.
Did he have a technical start? Possibly.
Yeah, but he wasn't the starter. But yeah, that's kind of.
Oh, and Tate Johnson started last year, so 2.
If he's in the
but at a different position. Yeah, assuming Tate starts this year. Good point. So, yeah, let us know. Do y'all think Auburn is better than 13th in the SEC? Genuinely curious. Charlie5, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
Absolutely. Find me on Twitter at @the_Charlie_5 in the Locked On Auburn Discord every single day, on the Auburn Live, the Corner message board, or weekly on the Dad Bod Golf Pod.
Follow all my stuff on socials at Zac Blackerby and all my written Auburn work at auburndaily.com. We will see you tomorrow. This has been Locked On Auburn.